You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
There is no substitute for victory.
I accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States.
We are Americans.
I ask for your prayers and your support as our country continues its vital role as a leader for world peace.
Well, I believe there's a better way of eliminating the threat of nuclear war.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
My friends, we did it. We weren't just marking time. We made a difference.
It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment and to demand recognition of the distinction between the powers granted to the federal government and those reserved to the states or to the people.
Reagan was swept into the White House after capturing 44 states in the 1980 presidential election against the incumbent Jimmy Carter. Reagan promised to prove a stark contrast to President Carter and to restore the glory days of America. The Reagan campaign was immensely successful in portraying Carter as a president who was willing to have America settle for stagnation and blame the weakness of the Carter administration for the prolonged hostage situation in Iran. Whereas Jimmy Carter said, if you're totally illiterate and living on $1 a day, the benefit of globalization never comes to you. Reagan saw globalization as a key to continued American dominance and as the crucial factor in business growth. Reagan's rhetoric of American exceptionalism won over the American people. Running for the position of president, Reagan utilized the Cold War to benefit from nationalistic sentiments and promoted the growth of the American military and maintaining superpower status through military spending and strength. Although this led to cries that he was a warmonger, his notion of peace through strength held an appeal to voters.
Reagan also ran under the vow of fiscal conservation and thus promised drastic cuts in government social spending to offset military costs. Critics of Reagan's campaign against social welfare programs cite racial factors. They criticize his labeling of welfare abusers as welfare queens and point to his choice of location for kicking off his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Here, where 3 civil rights workers had been killed trying to register African American voters, Reagan's speech championed states' rights. Reagan also promised to cut spending by decreasing the bureaucracy of Washington. He declared that one of his primary goals to promote states' rights and decrease Washington's bureaucratic oversight would be to defund and abolish the Department of Education. Upon his ascendance to the presidency, the prospects for continued social progression did not seem strong. Critical Americans did not see Reagan as a president who would focus on alleviating racial or economic disparity, despite Reagan's assurance his economic principle of trickle-down effect would benefit both corporate and mainstream Americans. Despite these criticisms, Reagan's charisma of a Hollywood actor and promises of renewed hope in America's greatness inspired confidence among many Americans. Reagan vowed to create a more prosperous and more powerful nation that the world has ever seen. He promised this by declaring, "Each generation goes further than the generation preceding it because it stands on the shoulders of that generation. You will have opportunities beyond anything we've ever known."
Our efforts to reduce the number of employees in the federal workforce by 75,000. The budget plan I submit to you on February 8th will realize major savings by dismantling the Departments of Energy and Education and by eliminating ineffective subsidies for business.